Okay, good morning. Pesahim, Daf Zayin, a jam-packed daf today, a lot of important topics. We're going to start off talking about why we do bitul at night, the night before, and not later on, like in the next morning. Then we're going to talk about an interesting case of moldy bread that you find and you're not sure what it is. And then there's a key sugya that applies to so many things, the Berakhah wording and the fact that we have to say the Berakhah before we do a mitzvah, and sometimes we use a verb and sometimes a noun form. And then finally, why do we need to use a lamp in order to do Bedikat Chametz? Okay, so we'll jump right in. We last time we saw the number of statements by Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav, and the last one was that you have to nullify chametz. You have to, even though you checked your house and you made sure there's none, you have to say any chametz that's left, I don't care about. It's negligible to me. And we wondered, why do you need to do that? And we saw the answer is because those crumbs don't matter. But maybe you'll find a little bit of a loaf, a cookie, and you'll think about wanting to eat it on Pesach itself. So we wondered, why not do bitul on Pesach? The second you find it, say, I don't care about this. The problem there is that since it has no value, because I'm not allowed to own it, so I can't nullify something that has no value in the first place. Therefore, I must do bitul while the chametz is still permitted. And so therefore, it's something that has value, and I can say, I am declaring it not valuable to me. Okay, good. So that's why we do it before the prohibition begins. But now we ask another question. Why not say bitul in the fourth or fifth hour during the day? In other words, just a little while before the prohibition of chametz kicks in. We answer, Kevan de lav zeman isurahu ve lav zeman bi'orahu dilma pasha vela mebatel le. He says, because it's not connected to anything. Since it's not the exact time when the prohibition will kick in, it's also not the time that I did bi'ur, meaning bedikat chametz the night before. Therefore, I'm going to forget. If I do it at night, this is what we do. Immediately after we do bedikat chametz, we collect all 10 pieces, however many you find, and then you say it right then and there. So the rabbis are very good at psychology. You know, if you want to remember to do something tomorrow, says, yeah, I'll send that email tomorrow. Then for sure you're going to forget. But if you say, you know what, tomorrow while I'm drinking my coffee, I'm going to send the email. Then you're much more likely, if you connect it to something that you are definitely going to do, you're more likely to remember that item. And so therefore, the bitul should be connected to another ritual that we are doing, and that's why it's best to do it at night, together with the bedikat chametz, and not just in the fourth hour or fifth hour. All right, good. But based on that, v'ni batile b'shit, why not nullify it in the sixth hour? In other words, between 11 and 12 a.m., the prohibition kicks in at noon, so everybody's aware of that. Oh, it's going to be prohibited now, so do bitul during that time. We said, no, that's not good either. Kevan di surah de rabbanan ilave kedoraita damya v'lav b'shuteh kaima v'lamaseh mevatel. Although midoraita, the prohibition of chametz starts at noon, the rabbis added 1 hour before, from 11 a.m. Not on a typical day, of course. Sha'od zemaniyot. And so therefore, since you have an isur de rabbanan on it, even that prohibition makes it worthless. And so again, we can't do bitul on something that has no value. So I have to do bitul before 11 a.m. and there's no action happening at that time. And that's why the nighttime is better than the daytime to say the bitul. Of course, we today have a double custom. We say bitul at night for anything that we haven't seen. And then during the day, after we burn or destroy the chametz that we have, then we say bitul again. So we have a backup, but certainly we should say it the night before, just in case we might forget something the next day. Okay. Amar Rav Gidel Amar Rabbi Chaya bar Yosef Amar Rav HaMekadesh Mishesh Shaot Ulamala Afilu Bechiteh Kur Dan Naita and Choshishin LeKiddushin. We're proving from here that chametz during the 6th hour from 11 to 12, from 11 till noon, has no monetary value. How do we prove that? Well, if I would take some chametz and give it to a woman and say haret mikudeshet li with this chametz, then the marriage would not be good. The kiddushin would not be good, because in order to do kiddushin, you have to give something of value, and chametz during that time, even though it's only asur midrabanan, has no value, and therefore the kiddushin is not good at all. This is very interesting because midoraita, it's fine, it's perfectly permitted. So you might think midoraita, the marriage would be okay. And but yet the rabbis have the power to say, since we declared this to be chametz and chametz prohibited and therefore valueless, therefore even midrabanan and midoraita level, the kiddushin is not valid. Okay, the example they bring of what kind of chametz is this kurdanaita. This is some kind of a Kurdish grain that is the kernel is very hard, and so in order to help it ripen, they would put water around it, and so it would become it could become chametz, and then they would dry it out. So this is, in olden days, as David was asking yesterday, there's very few things that would last, that would be chametz. If you bake bread, it gets moldy soon. They didn't have like pasta and things like that. But this is something that is wheat, and they would help it ripen with some water, so it actually could become chametz, and then they'd store it away after it dried. So even this, which is like the most minimal possibility of chametz, even this is considered worthless. It's chametz enough, even though it's only before noon, and so therefore we see that there is no value to it after 11 a.m. and therefore you can't do bitul at that time. You have to do bitul beforehand. Okay, good. Now, batari isura lama sem vatele. You just told me that on Pesach itself, when chametz is prohibited, I cannot nullify it. Is that true? Look at this case. Vatanya. היה יושב בבית המדרש ונזכר שיש חמץ בתוך ביתו, מבטלו בליבו, אחד שבת ואחד יום טוב. Let's say on Shabbat or on Yom Tov. Yom Tov would be on Pesach itself. You're sitting in the Bet Midrash and you're and studying, listening to the shiur, and all of a sudden, I guess your mind is wandering a little, and you remember, I have some chametz at home. Oh no, I have to get rid of it. What should I do? And it's very difficult. You got to go and you got to leave. You got to get up in the middle of the shiur and go. And so what should you do instead? Just think about it. That chametz I have in my house, not mine. I don't care about it. And that's sufficient. Okay. Some people learn from here the fact that you can do it in your mind. You don't have to say it. It's more than just hefker. Hefker means if I take some items with my phone, hefker. Anyone, it's not mine. Anyone can have it. But they usually have to say something in order to do that. Here you could do it in your mind. It's not simply that you're giving it away, but you're completely nullifying it. It's negligible to you. Okay, so look at that. This is on Pesach, right? Because it says Yom Tov, and yet you can nullify it. So, right, this is goes against the principle we just said that you cannot nullify chametz on Yom Tov. So we say Bishlam Shabbat Mashkachat. I understand the case of Shabbat. Could be Shabbat that's before Pesach. Kegon shechal arba'asa liot b'Shabbat. Ella, I think we have that this year. Ella Yom Tov batad isurahu, but Yom Tov is Pesach itself, and chametz is prohibited, and yet it says you can do bitul. So we have a nice answer. Amar Berakhah bar Yaakov, hacha betamid yoshev lifnei rabo askinan, v'nizkar sheyesh isa migulgelet betoch beto, u'mityareh shemma tachmis kadem mevatel mikamed tachmis. He doesn't actually have chametz at home yet. What happened is there was some dough. He made some dough. Now, technically, you can make masa on Pesach. Most people don't want to do this today nowadays because if you leave a little over, it's a problem. But actually, even today, people who are very mahmir, they like to make masa on Erev Pesach, even right before, and so you can do it. And in those days, they didn't, they couldn't keep food so long. So they would bake masa. Even on Yom Tov, you can bake masa. So they have dough, and he puts some dough there. And he's in the middle. For some reason, he goes to the yeshiva. In the yeshiva, he remembers, I have dough sitting on my counter. So far, the dough is not chametz, right? It's just dough. Dough by itself is okay before 18 minutes. But now he remembers, and the problem is, he's not going to be able to get home in time to destroy that dough or to bake it, and it's going to become chametz. So what does he do? He says, that dough that's in my house, I don't care about it. It's not mine. It's negligible. So therefore, it's okay because it is not actually chametz right now. The dough is valuable, so he can do bitul before it becomes chametz. And that's the case that it's talking about. And it seems that this is in fact what the case is because it mentions he's in the Bet Midrash. The point is he can't get home in time to do it. If it was actual chametz, some cookies sitting on the counter, and what's the difference if he's in Bet Midrash or at home? He wouldn't be able to do anything better anyway. Okay, good. So we finished that case. And we saw the principle. Why do we nullify at night? Right. So basically, these two principles, because you cannot do bitul when the chametz is prohibited, so it has to be before, and you want to connect it with another act. So we connect it with the bidikat chametz, and that way we'll make sure to remember. All right, now the case of moldy bread. We're going to talk about this is a safek. We're not sure what it is, and what principle should we use when we're not sure what the status of something is. Should we follow the majority? The last time we used it, we're going to end up saying it's the specific circumstances of it. Let's see the case. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, hapat she'li pesha kevan she'rabta masa muteret. So Rav, the first generation of Morah, says that bread that became moldy, if there's mostly matzah, let's say it's in a box with a lot of different matzot, if it's mostly matzah, and then I find one moldy item, it's permitted. Okay, now we would be able to tell the difference between matzah and chametz because our chametz looks like a challah or a roll, and our matzah looks like crackers. But of course, in those days, and even in Middle Eastern countries today, they look pretty much the same. They didn't have chalot; they had pita bread or lafa bread all year round, and their matzah actually looked the same, like the soft matzah. So if you find something, especially if it's a little bit moldy, it would be hard to tell which one it was. And so he says, if you look in the box and you see the majority of it is matzah, you can assume that this item you found is also matzah. Of course, we're talking about a case, it's not so moldy that it's completely unedible even to an animal, because then it would not be food. We're talking about it's a little bit moldy, and I don't know, maybe half of it's moldy, you'll eat, you can eat that, the other half, or maybe you'll feed it to the animal. And so you still want to use it. Food was very valuable in those days. So now we're wondering, what is the case? If you remember that this was chametz, so what's the difference if there's mostly matzah in the box? I know this is chametz, so for sure it's not going to be allowed. Rather, let's be talking about a case. I'm not sure. I don't remember putting it in here. I don't remember when it was put. I don't remember the status. So then you follow the majority. But we ask about that too. Why are you applying the principle of majority? You should follow the principle of the last things that you put in it. It's like, if you lose your keys, should you look in the place where you usually put the keys, or where's the last place that you put them? In this case, there's a change in status. All year long, you have a bread box, you're putting bread in it, but now Pesach, you're putting matzah in it. So let's look, did you change over and start using it for matzah? What's the last, what was the last usage? And that would be a better way to tell. Here's a proof that the last usage is the best way to tell. Milot Tenan, we have a Mishnah in Masechet Maaser Sheni. Maaser Sheni means a tenth of my produce I have to bring to Jerusalem and eat in Jerusalem. Together with my friends, I invite everybody around. If I live far away and I redeem it for money, I have to add 25%. I take that money to Jerusalem and spend it on food. So here's the case. What if I'm in Jerusalem anytime during the year, but especially during the holidays when most people would come, and I pick up a coin. So there's no sign on it. I don't have to return it. So finders keepers. Okay, good. But the question is, what is the status of that coin? If it's regular money, I can pocket it and take it home and use it for whatever I want. But if it's Maaser Sheni money, if it's money that someone else already brought to Jerusalem in order to buy food in Jerusalem, then it has holiness. And therefore, I have to also use it to buy food in Jerusalem. So I can't tell. It doesn't say on it. It's not in an envelope or anything. So what do I do? Here's the Mishnah's guidelines. If I find the money near the butcher, then for sure it's Maaseh Sheni all year round, because most of the animals that are sold in Jerusalem are Maaseh Sheni money. People come bringing a tenth of their entire year's salary, and they're going to use it within a few days. So they want to buy a nice animal, get some lamb chops out of it. So therefore, in the butcher's store, we assume that everything is Maaseh Sheni money. If I go up to Harabayit and I'm visiting, I'm walking around the plaza and the Bet HaMikdash, then it's chulin, because people already spent their money. They're not buying any food up there. In the rest of Jerusalem, B'Yerushalayim b'shat haregel maaser, b'sharimot hashana cholin. If it's during one of the holidays, and therefore a lot of people are coming in, and so in the streets of Jerusalem, in the general marketplaces, most of the money is coming from people that are bringing their maaser sheni. I have to assume it's maaser sheni. But during the rest of the year, then I can assume that it's regular, it's chulin money, and I can take it home. I can spend whatever on whatever I want. Okay, now why is that the case of the Mishnah? How does this relate to the last thing? Amar Rav Shemaya bar Zera. He's a 5th generation Amora. My tama ho'il b'shukei Yerushalayim asuyin yitkabed bechol yom. The marketplaces in the general city of Jerusalem, they get swept every day. Every day after business, they sweep everything. Alma amrinan kama'e azlile. Therefore, if I'm there on the holiday and I find a coin, I cannot assume that it's a coin that someone forgot a month ago or 6 months ago. I have to assume that it's a coin that someone lost today. And since it's the holiday time, it must be Maaseh Sheni money. And so you see that here, you follow the last usage because there's a lot of turnover here. They clean it every day. So too, in my bread basket, there's a lot of turnover. And just like, milk in the fridge, you drink the one with the earliest expiration date first, right? Because you don't want to keep the fresh one later. So generally, there's a lot of turnover. And so let's see, how have I used it last? If I've been using it for masa, then it should be fine. The majority doesn't matter. It's the latest usage that matters. So that's the question. Why did you say majority? Why not latest usage? The answer is, no, here you can't follow that assumption because it's moldy. If it's moldy, that means for sure it was in there for a long time, right? This is the milk that was all the way in the back. No one saw it, right? And you smell it. The smell is bad. Obviously, this is bad. This is bad. So if you take out this piece of laffa bread, and it's moldy, it's probably not from the most recent time you put it in there. It's probably old, and the older it is, therefore, it sounds like it should be chametz. Okay, so that seems to fit. Now, question. Fine, you explained why I don't follow the latest usage. But why should I follow the majority? Since it's moldy, I shouldn't follow the majority. I should assume it's from a long time ago, and therefore it's probably chametz. So that doesn't work either. Amar Rabbah, by the way, is a 3rd generation Amora. You see, he actually lives before the Bizera. So he couldn't possibly be reacting to the Bizera, even though it looks like that in the flow of the Gemara. Rather, he's going all the way back on the original statement of Rav and explaining it, and saying must have had the same question. Why should you follow the majority of the items? And just an old piece of bread in there. So he reinterprets. La tema sheravta masa, ela ema sherabu yeme masa ilave. It's not that there's a majority is not masa. The word rabu is not going on that. It's the many days since the time of masa. In other words, into Pesach. I found this moldy bread several days later at the end of the holiday. What's the point? Since I found it several days after the beginning of when I have to eat masa, that's why it's moldy, right? I can assume that's moldy. If I find it on the first day of Pesach, it's pretty moldy, must be chametz. If I find it on the 6th day of Pesach, right, and it had time to get moldy. And so therefore I can assume that it is masa because I would have been careful. to get rid of all the chametz beforehand. Okay, so that's what it's talking about. It depends when you find it. Okay, if so, obviously, if I find something well into Pesach and it's moldy, I can assume it's okay. Maybe it's very moldy, more than 6 days moldiness. אמרינן כל יומה ויומה נהמה חמימה עפה ושתה ילווה באפשה תפה. So since it's very moldy, I might have thought that this shows it must be chametz because it comes from way before, many days before. And therefore, Rav's chidush was to teach me that since I put new warm loaves into the bread basket every day, and that warmth, that moisture will cause the ones that are already in there to be moist and therefore become more moldy. And so since I can explain the high level of moldiness because of the way I use it and the time that I found it, therefore, Rav teaches, I can assume that it's okay, and I can assume it's matzah and not chametz, and then that way I can eat it. Okay, good. So that explains the Rav statement. While we're on this topic, just 2 more paragraphs. In general, you said that you should follow the last way it was used. Is that true always? Umi azlinan batar batra batanya. Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda omer teva shenishtameshu ba me'ot cholin u'me'ot maaser. Im rov cholin cholin. Im rov maaser maaser. I have a box that I keep coins in. Sometimes I use it for regular coins. Sometimes I use it for maaser sheni coins. And now I found the box and I don't remember are the coins in it chulin, regular coins, or are they sacred coins and I have to use that money to go to Jerusalem? So the answer is you follow the majority. How do you usually use it? One time I used it for this way, most of the time I use it for that. So you see, you follow majority usage. And now we have a question. Amai, lezel batar batra. We have another principle that use it on the last thing the last way it was used, right? Why don't you say, the last time I used it, it was for maaser sheni. Why don't you go by the last time? Why is the majority any better? It's 2 competing principles here. אמר רב נחמן בר יצחק, הכרחה במה עסקינן, כגון שנשתמשו בה מעות חולין ומאות מעשר, ואין יודע איזה מהן בסוף. He says, no, I know that sometimes I use it for this, sometimes I use it for that. I don't remember what the last usage was, and that's why I follow the majority. But if in fact you do remember the last usage, then you would follow the last usage. That's the second answer. Rav Zavid amar כגון שנשתמשו בה siburin siburin. Or it could be in the box, I had 2 piles. I had a pile of chulin, a pile of maaser sheni. And the problem is it got mixed up, and now I don't know which pile is which. And so that's the case where that's why I should follow the majority. Rav Papa amar kegon dishtakach beguma. He says, no, it's a different thing. That I found the coin in a hole in the bottom of the box. It was stuck there. And so it's not necessarily from the current usage. Maybe it was stuck there from a previous usage. And that's why I follow the majority in this case. But otherwise, you're right. I would follow the latest usage. Okay, good. So that concludes that topic. And since we're talking about before and after, now this is a very important sugya that has a lot of practical effect, which is what is the berakhah that we say on bedikat chametz, and how should we say it? And we're going to compare this wording to 7 cases altogether that we're going to have of different mitzvot and the type of berakhah that we make. So let's see what we do and why we do it. Good. Amar Rav Yehuda, habodek tzarich sheyevarech. When you do bedikat chametz, you have to say berakhah first. It's interesting we say berakhah because this is not a deoraita law, but in a way it is the beginning of a deoraita law. The Torah says to destroy the chametz. So it's really the burning or however you destroy it. That is the mitzvah deoraita. The looking around the house with a candle, that itself is not deoraita, but rather midrabanan. Yet we say berakhah on it. Berakhah that we say is not al bedikat chametz, but rather al biur chametz, because in order to have something to burn, you have to find something first. So it's really the beginning of the process of the deoraita law. Okay, so that's why we say berakhah on bedikat chametz, and that's why the berakhah is regarding the biur, regarding the burning of it. And now, how do you say the berakhah? 2 opinions. Rav Papi Amar Mishmeh de Rava leba'er Hametz. Rav Papa Amar Mishmeh de Rava al bi'ur Hametz. Okay, they're both quoting their teacher Rava, but it's a little confusing. One's Rav Papi, one's Rav Papa. They're both fifth generation students of Rava. Anyway, let's refer to them by their usage. So the first one says, "Leva'ed Hametz." You commanded us to destroy Hametz. So he's using a verb, an infinitive verb. The Papa, however, says use a noun form al regarding bi'ur Hametz, regarding the destruction of the Hametz. Okay, so what's better, the verbal form or the noun form? Now we have a principle that all berachot have to be oved le'asiyatan, which means you have to say the berakhah first before you do the mitzvah. And that's generally what we do. If you have wearing a talit, you hold the talit and you say the berakhah and then you wrap it. That's true for most things. So to here, you have to say it before, and therefore the language should be, I am going to do this item. So everybody agrees that the verbal form, right, commanded us to destroy chametz is something I'm about to do, right? I'm about to do this verb. So everyone said, so that's the preferable, to say the verbal form. Everyone would agree with that, and that's Papi's explanation. Ki pelige be'al bi'ur mor savar meikara mashma umor savar lehaba mashma. The machloket, the controversy here is regarding the noun form, al bi'ur. Does al bi'ur, regarding the destruction of Hametz, does that mean something I did already, right? That sounds like, according to the Papi, it sounds like something you did in the past. So it's not a preferable formulation. Whereas the Papa says, that's also talking about the future, regarding the removal of Hametz, which I'm about to do. And so therefore he says that's totally fine. Okay, so you see that Papa, the second opinion, says you can use the verb form or the noun form. They both have to do with the future, so it's fine. Papi says use the verbal form, so he's more limited. Now we're going to ask a series of questions on Daf Papi on that first opinion, because sometimes we use the verbal form, like lehitatef bisisit, but sometimes we use the noun form. So we're going to ask him anytime we use the noun form, hey, Daf Papi, what are you going to do with that? Because you said the noun form has to do with the past. It always has to. We always do the Adam in the future, the action in the future. So first question, Metibe Baruch Asher Kedishan Musatav Sivanu al Hamila. So why do we say here the noun form, Rav Papi, if you said the noun form is not good? Hatam Hechi Nema Lamul. So what else could you say? How could you say a verbal form? Lamul etaben. Right? You commanded us to perform Brit Milah, circumcision on the child. La sagyad elav ihu mahel. No, you cannot do that. That formulation is not sufficient because not always does the father do it, right? Actually, usually we appoint a mohel to do it for us, and therefore you need a more general formulation. God did not command each and every person to perform Brit Milah. What if I don't have a son? What if I don't know how to do it? Right? Rather, we have a general commandment to do Brit Milah. And sometimes someone else might be doing it on a different person's child. So therefore, you need to do the more general formulation. Okay, good. So that explains why. In other words, Rapapi would say here, you're right. In general, I like the verbal form, but if it doesn't apply, we can't always do it. So then he'll agree, fine, do the noun form. Now, according to this, Aviha ben Ma'ika lememar. What if the father of the boy actually does the Brit Milah himself, right? You said the only problem is he's not doing it on his own child, so he didn't command the mohel to do Brit Milah on everybody. It's only because the father gives him permission to, but the commandment is on the father. So if the father is actually doing it himself, would he say Lamul et haben? And the Talmud says, yes, in fact, he would. Okay, so halacha l'maaseh, by the way, on this is Chacham Ovadia Yosef says the custom is not to do that. Even if the father is a surgeon or is a mohel and doing it on his own son, he knows how to do it, he still says al hamilah. However, I think Chacham Ovadia is describing a general custom. When happened here in our community, Morris Abraham just told me when his son, who is a doctor, did Brit Milah on his son, they asked Rabbi Aluf and said that we do say lamul etaben, and that's in fact what he did. So anyway, around here in our community, we would say lamul etaben if the father is doing it. Okay, good. By the way, you don't have to be such an expert. You can get the mohel to set it up for you, and as long as you're not nervous, you can't really go wrong. But I can't speak too much because I didn't do it myself. Okay. So we solved that question. Next question. Baruch asher kedushan mitzvotav v'sivanu al hashechita. You see, we use the noun form. If you're going to do shechita on an animal, you say regarding. You commanded us regarding slaughtering animals. So how can we use the noun form? Why don't we say the verbal form? We can't say you commanded us lishchot because you don't have to slaughter an animal. There's no specific mitzvah that you have to go slaughter an animal. If I'm vegetarian, I don't have to go slaughter an animal. Even if I eat meat, if I get someone else, right? If I get shochet to do it. So I'm not commanded personally to do shechita. Okay, I did in fact learn in YU chicken slaughtering. We got as far as sharpening the knife. I never actually slaughtered one, but one of my friends did in the bio lab, and then it ran around the bio lab, and but he took it home for dinner. Okay, so so I don't have to do. I don't have to go and learn shechita in order to do it, and therefore you can't say you commanded me to slaughter. God did not command me to slaughter. He just commanded me regarding shechita. So you have to use the more general formulation, which is the noun. So that's why even the Papir would agree. Yeah, you're right. I like the verbal formulation, but it doesn't apply here. Well, is that true in all cases? Pesach v'kadashim ma'ika lememad inachiname. If regarding Korban Pesach, when Pesach, every single person is commanded. You have to bring Korban Pesach, and you have to slaughter it. Or other kodashim that I'm obligated to bring, I have to bring it. And so therefore, but in that case, would you say lishchot? He says, yes, you're right. Then you would say lishchot when you can. Okay, good. Meti is similar to b'milaf. I'm doing it myself, and I'm commanded to do it. Okay, meti be. Next question. At the time that you prepare the lulav, you say shechianu. We don't do this nowadays. Nowadays we say shechianu right before we do the mitzvah. But in those days, when you go you'd go and buy the lulav, you go to Borough Park. I like to go to Borough Park right before Sukkot starts. You get the best deals. So as you're buying it and as you're preparing it, and you say shechianu because you're preparing for the mitzvah. Once you actually pick it up and take it for the mitzvah on Sukkot, you take it in order to fulfill the mitzvah. Remember this word laset. Then you say al netilat lulav. We use the noun form. You commanded us regarding the taking of lulav. So why? Why don't you say a verb form? Shanehatam lintol et lulav. The problem with lulav is it's tricky. It's hard to do it's hard to say the berakhah before the action because just by picking it up, I already fulfilled the mitzvah. And therefore, I can't say lintol because that is only for the future. And in a lot of cases in the lulav, I pick it up first and then I say the berakhah. So I need the more general formulation that can refer to the past also. Okay, we try to get around this by Ashkenazim will pick up the lulav and then the etrog they'll hold upside down and then only turn it around after the berakhah. That way the berakhah is before the action. Sfaradim generally will leave the etrog on the table, touch it because you're supposed to be touching the item that you're going to do the mitzvah with, and then you only pick up the etrog after you make the berakhah. So you see, it's difficult to do, and a lot of times you end up picking it up, and so therefore we have to use the more general formulation. Because sometimes you're going to end up saying the berakhah after you actually picked it up. Okay, good. Now, according to this, see in this Barai Tosefta that we quoted, we say if I pick it up in order to fulfill the mitzvah, which sounds like I'm going to fulfill it in the future. But you just said that we fulfill it first and then we say the berakhah. So why does this use the word lasetbo, which sounds like the future? Yasabo mibayla should be, he already did it. You're right, it should say Yasabo, but the continuation of the Tosefta talks about the case of sitting in the sukkah. Leshev basukah, So since it wants to have the formula match, you're sitting in the sukkah, it's actually easy to say the Berakhah first, because you go in the sukkah and you say the Berakhah, and then you sit down. And so it's the sitting down in the sukkah that is the fulfillment. And so since it used the future verb, it's an infinitive, but they take infinitive as something that is good, is continuing, that you're gonna do, about to do, and so therefore to make the tenses match, this is always good writing style, to make sure your tenses match within a paragraph. The Katane Sefa, now I'll quote the Sefa. Very interesting. In those days, when they build the sukkah, they would say Shechianu, even before Sukkot. And then Nichnas Lesheba Omer Baruch Hashem Kedushim Vesivanu Leshev Basukkah. So you go in Leshev Ba in order to fulfill the mitzvah. You're going to fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, but in the Hilchata, final answer, Al Bi'ur Chametz. I know we had a long discussion now, but this is in fact what we say. We don't say Liv Ha'edet HaChametz, but rather Al Bi'ur Chametz. So that because we think that it is in fact talking about the future, where you say the Berakhah before, and we're about to do the going around and searching. Yeah, our custom today is to hide some matzah because we don't want to make a Berakhah lebatala. In those days, this would be the cleaning of the house. They say the Berakhah, then you go around and look for everything in the house. Nowadays, we're cleaning from 120 days before, and then there's no chametz left. So we got to put chametz, plant some chametz, in order to be able to find it, so that we can fulfill this Berakhah. Be careful if you have little kids. This happened to me many times. My kids hit it, and then they couldn't remember where they put it. Okay. Okay, now we've been assuming this whole time that you say the Berakhah first, and then you do the action. But how do we know that principle that you have to be over le'asiyatan? Amar Abu Yehuda, Amar Shemuel, Kol ha-misvot nevarech alehen over le'asiyatan. This principle goes back to the first generation Amorah, Shemuel. You always, all mitzvot, you bless on them, over. Le'asiyatan, over means before their performance. How do we know that the word over means that? Over means to pass by. How do you mean that? How it means to me? It means before. My mashma da hay over lishana da akdumehu. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak da amar kera. Ayaros achimas derech hakikar ve'abor et hakushi. There were two people running to tell David the bad news about his son, Avimelech. And so there was a Kushi, there was Kushite that was running, he was a fast runner, and Achimatz ran faster by Avod, and he passed the Kushi. In other words, he went in front of him. So therefore, the word Oved means to go before. Be'ez says in a different pasuk, Berakhah v'hu avad lifnehem. This is from next week's parasha, when Esav is coming to greet or fight with Yaakov. Yaakov splits his camp, and Yaakov goes in front of his wives and his children. So you see the word avar means in front of. Or pasuk from Micha that says their king went in front of them and God was in front. So talking about the coming of Mashiach, and so Hashem being Berosham is parallel to Avaya Avod. So therefore the word avar means to go in front of. All right, but now that we have that, the source, two more cases of Berachot. Be'erav Amri, this is not about the formulation of the Berakhah verb or noun, but whether we say before or after. Chutz min hatevila v'shofar. We always say the Berakhah before, except for two cases. When someone goes into a mikveh, he should say the Berakhah after. I said he on purpose. And also regarding shofar, first blow the shofar, and then say the Berakhah after. Let's analyze. Bishlama tibila dakate gabra la hazeh. So why regarding mikveh? So what cases? It depends what the case is talking about. Generally, a woman is going to a mikveh because of nida, says the Berakhah first. There's no problem for a nida saying a Berakhah. She's praying all the time. And so a woman will say the Berakhah right before she immerses. However, a man could be talking about two cases. One, a convert. That actually could be a woman also. Before someone converts, they can't say the Berakhah. So what we do today is the convert will dunk one time, and then now they're converted. They say the Berakhah, right, while they're in the water, they cover themselves. and they say the Berakhah, and then they dunk twice more. So that so in that case, you have to dunk before you say the Berakhah because they're not Jewish yet. The other case is when a man has a certain type of tum'ah. They had a custom back then when someone is a Baal Keri, they cannot pray, they cannot say a Berakhah. And therefore, he can't say the Berakhah before he goes to the mikveh. So he has to say, he has to dunk first, and then he can say the Berakhah afterwards. Okay, so that explains the case of Tevilah. Ela shofar ma'itama, but shofar, what's the reason? Why don't you say the Berakhah before shofar? Mishum dilma mikalkela tikira. Maybe because shofar is hard to do. You never know if you're going to get the sound out. What if you say the Berakhah and then you're blowing and the sound's not coming out well? Now you're going to say Berakhah lebatala. So that's why blow first. After you know that you did it well, then you say the Berakhah. But if that's the case, then anything that's difficult to do, shechita, maybe the animal's going to run away, maybe it's going to not be good, brit milah, okay, hope we don't make a mistake on that, right? But you never know, something can go wrong, and you won't be able to fulfill the mitzvah. So you're going to say in all those cases that you should say the Berakhah after. We don't do that. Ela Marachista chutz min haTevilah. So Marachista modifies and says, you're right. The only exception is mikveh, but bilvad itimar. But you're right, shofar and everything else, we say the Berakhah beforehand. And we have a baraita that supports this. Tabal ve'ala ba'aliyato omer baruch asher kedushan misotav sivanu al haTevilah. And sure enough, regarding the immersion in the mikveh, in those cases, not in all cases, a person dunks first and then says the Berakhah al haTevilah. It makes sense they should say al haTevilah, which is the language that can mean coming or something that was already done in the past. Okay, good. So now we just a little bit more to go. And le'or haner, the Mishnah had 7 words? Or le'arba'asar bodkin tachames le'or haner. We're already in Daf Zayin, right? 7 dapim already, just on the first 7 words. Okay, and we're not done yet. So Lord Haner, why do we use the lamp, the light of a lamp? What's the source? Okay, we have a 5-chain link. We're going to link each of these words together. It sounds a lot more complicated than it needs to be. It's not so difficult to follow. Let's see how we're learning this. מציאה ומציאה, כתיב אחר 7 ימים שאור, לא יימסה בבתיכם. So chametz cannot be found. That's the word יימסה in your homes. וכתיבתם, ויחפש בגדול החל, ובקטון קילה, ויימסה. Regarding the brothers, when Yosef planted the gavia in one of their backpacks, they searched all of the brothers, starting with the oldest to the youngest. And it says the word vayimaseh, and they found it in the youngest. And that same pasuk also says vaychapes, they searched. So now we get from finding to searching are linked. Mitziah mechipus tideh. All right, and so within this pasuk we have right vayimaseh mechapes. So now we're connecting chametz to the searching here. Now the word chipus itself, vechipus menerot tichtiv, vayatayah chapes et Yerushalayim banerot. This is a pasuk from Sefania. It says at the end of days, Hashem is going to look around in Jerusalem and search for the evildoers. And banerot, how is he going to search? Using lamps. So there you go. Searching is done with lamps. And furthermore, banerot miner, you don't have to use a lot of lamps, but even just one. Dichtiv ner Hashem or ner Elokim nishmat Adam chofes kol hadre baten. God's light is the soul of a person. In other words, just like you have a room and it's dark, but you have a lamp to make it light, so to a person's body is like a room, and their soul is the light by which Hashem can search a person's deeds. Okay, so you see that this is a lot more complicated than just halachically necessary. Obviously, there's an agadic portion here also, and the point is that it's not just practical. We're using a lamp to make light. If so, we could just use a flashlight, which we do because it also has a practical side. Use a flashlight not to burn down your house. But you should also take a lamp because the lamp has the fire has a symbolic value. So at least for the beginning of the searching, it's good to use in the kitchen where it's safe. It's good to use a fire, to use a lamp, because you see that all these connections are saying, like we said in the introductory class, that Bedikat Chametz is not only looking for Chametz. As we're doing it, we should think of Chametz symbolically as that which is ego, that which is full of hot air and fake, and rather, get down to basics and be humble like a masa. So as we're searching for the house, we're thinking about searching our own deeds, and that's in fact the rest of it, searching society in Sefanya, and Hashem searching the soul of mankind in Mishle. Okay, good. Well, and just with this last baraita that repeats what we just said. Hana deber b'Ishmael le 14 botkin tachames leor haner. This is lele, by the way, right? You see, this is when it says specifically at night. We quoted this earlier in the name of Shemuel. Here it's in the name of Rabbi Yishmael. You can see how Shemuel and Yishmael might get mixed up. So we check leor haner. There's no proof for the matter because after all, it does not come from a pasuk in the Torah. So if it doesn't come from a pasuk in Torah, you can't say it's midoraita, but rather from Nevi'im, and so it's a hint only. זכר לדבר, שנאמר, 7 ימים שעוד לא ימסה, ואומר, ויחפש בגדול החל בקטון קהילה. We need a second pasuk to connect finding to searching. ואומר, בעת ההיא אחפש את ירושלים בנרות, ואומר, נר אלוקים נשמת אדם חופש, and so on. כל חדרי בטן. So the same list that we just had before. Mai ve'omer, we're wondering, why do we need the last pasuk? See, the second to last pasuk already said, banerot. I already know that you use lamps. Why do you need another one from Mishle? It's obvious it's not for grammatical reasons, or lexicographical reasons, but rather for the symbolic meaning. You might think, if I only had the second last pasuk, that why is Hashem using just a lamp to look for evil people in Jerusalem? Because he doesn't want to find them. He wants to be merciful, and he wants to only use a small lamp to find only the blatantly evil doers that are out in the street. But you're not going to find the hidden ones. So maybe God is being merciful by saying, I'm not going to search by daylight, only by a light of a lamp. No, do not think that. That you only find the big sins and not the little sins. And that's why the second pasuk says that the spirit of man is the lamp of God, that God can see all of our inner thoughts and actions, and therefore there's no getting around that. And so we'll end with this beautiful Agadah that says, really all of these details that we've been dealing with, these halachic details, are so significant because they are important reminders that all of these rituals should elevate us to introspection and to humility. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.